good evening, and welcome to Renew US live here on PJNET. And with us in the studio, kind of, sort of, over there, there, is our good friend and brother in Christ, Dale Didway. I have been particularly interested and eager to hear more about not only the story. You're going to love the story, people, but the story behind the story is Dale is kind enough to share some of that with us. You know, Dale, so often we hear about lives gone wrong, children, men who are in prison, men that are drug dealers, men that are wife beaters, men that are, you know, bad in every way. And the common denominator seems to be, in many cases, that there was no father figure in the household growing up. So for a child without a father figure in the house, what if they didn't have a mother figure? I guess they would have no chance at all apart from a miracle, right?
Well, right. Plus you throw in the fact that they're, and this is nothing bad about the area, but throw in the factor that they're born and raised in the south side of Chicago, in gangs and in poor neighborhoods. No, mother is shot and killed when she's 17 years old. Didn't know who the dad was. Lives with a grandmother with 8 other kids. Not a good start. So, not a good way to start your life. So.
You know, your blog today, your blog is found, folks, if you don't know, you can go to deldidway.com. Now, Dale Didway is spelled a little unusual. It's D-E-L-D-U-D-U-I-T. But it is pronounced right. Dale Didway. And we will put that graphic up for you. But every Tuesday, you'll find an interesting story. And this week, Dale has again hit it out of the park. This child, to this day, doesn't know his father, who he is.
No.
Mother died early. And the story goes on. I'll let you tell it.
Oh, the story goes on. His name is Lamorse Crawford. He lived a rough life in the south side of Chicago. Poor and poverty, violence, drugs. At 11 years old, was recruited into a gang, joined the gang. 3 years later, he's on the street selling drugs to make money. Went to school occasionally to get food and to get away from things. Had a natural God-given ability and the love of basketball, so he got involved with the basketball team. Was a very good athlete. Was recruited by several Division I schools. Low SET score kept him out of college. Kept him out of that level of college. Very popular boy in high school, and then at 19, excuse me, he was introduced to the gospel through a cousin of his, and he found what he was looking for. Found a way out of the violence, and found a way out of the poverty and the depression and the uncertainty of that life. And found Christ, and that's all he needed. It's all he needed in life. He was searching for something, his whole life, and that's what it was. And, now, he was able to go to college, and now he is he's a chaplain of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's on staff with Athletes in Action. He goes around the nation preaching in the off season, and is now a good friend of mine, and because we met through the Bengals, and Lamorse is an inspirational, motivational, get you stand up, hollering type of preacher. I mean, he's just dynamic, and if there was ever a man who could have quit in life, he could have, but God saw fit to save him and come in his life and take him away from all that misery he was going through at such a young age.
Dale, he recently appeared not too far down the road from you. How did I take it you were there?
Yeah, we went. He came to a 2-day revival at a church about 7 miles from where we go. It's where my son and his wife go. And they said, "Hey, Lamorse is going to be in town." I said, "Hey, great." So I sent him a text. "Hey, I'm going to come over Monday night. Maybe we can catch up." He said, "Love to." Because he actually wrote the foreword to a book of mine coming out pretty soon called Bengal Believer, because he's the chaplain of the Bengals. So he wrote the foreword for this devotional. So, he's come a long way from, violence, poverty, depression to now living a life of Christ. And he doesn't boast or brag, but he tells everybody if he can do it, anybody can do it. If he can, if God will save him, then anybody can be saved. So they just have to ask for it.
So here's Lamar's at this church now. How big of a church are we talking? He's not the celebrity like many of the athletes that he works with, but so how big of a church?
And this is a big church. I mean, in my estimate, in Southern Ohio, it's a big church. We were there. I would say 1,200 people were there probably.
Really?
On a Monday night, which was kind of on a Monday night, big crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my guess, about 1,200 people, and they were. He had him in his hand, and it wasn't him, but God worked through him. But they listened to every word that guy said, and he did some things that he just said he's never done before in a service. But he felt led to do something, and it was really an amazing service what he did that night. So what God did through him, let's put it that way. But he doesn't take So I asked him that question too. I said, so what's it like being a chaplain of the Bengals? This being around all these limelight players, and he says, I stay out of the light, man. He says, I don't want that. Mm-hmm. He says, my job is to empower them and lead them and help men become men. That's his slogan. I help men become men. And so and he and his wife do Bible studies with several of the Bengal players and their wives every week. And it's got a good turnout. I'm going to try to go to one next year with him and, sit in with him. It'll be fun.
What exactly would the chaplain of any football team, what's that like? Because you're working with people who have no faith. You have people from different faiths. How does he work that out?
That's a good question. It's voluntary, and the players aren't made to go to chapel or made to go to a chaplain, but he's there, and so he encourages. He's part of the team, Mm-hmm. So he tries to encourage every player, whether they're a believer or not. He holds weekly Bible devotions for players and their wives to attend. He's there before the game, prays with players. He's there after the game. I've been with him after the game when players come up, and he'll talk to them and pray with them after the game. So he's there as a very supportive role. Now there's another chaplain I know pretty well, Tom Lamphere of the Minnesota Vikings. He is very active and very outspoken and does the same thing. He's there for support and guidance, and if players have a need, he tries to help them with that need. And oftentimes he tries to lead them to Christ, obviously. But he's there as a lot of moral support and guidance.
Well, and a lot of the things that when you think of football and crisis, I think of injuries and pain and the intensity of the competition. But really, the crises that come up in the life of a professional football player are probably no different than our own. I mean, our dog dies, our family member dies, illnesses in the family, that kind of thing. So he has to minister to a wide range of needs.
Oh, yeah, he does. And, in my last 2 or 3 years of being around a lot of these players and interviewing them for my books that are coming out, I would say 89 to 90% of the players say the same thing. Their biggest challenge that they face, and something that Lamorris tries to help these players with, is identity, because they're in this limelight and they're making a lot of money, mm-hmm. And they're, people are they're chasing for their autographs and their pictures. So there's this image and identity of who they are, and they get wrapped up in that. Benjamin Watson, who's going to retire after this year, he's with the Saints now, but they just lost, so he'll be retiring. He said, that's my biggest struggle is fighting, who I am. I'm a guy who has 5 or 6 kids. I have a wife. I have bills. I have everything. But I get wrapped up in who I am on the field. And he said, I can't do that. And that's the biggest challenge that a lot of these players face, is who they are on the field and who they are in reality. And a lot of them have the time juggling that big ball.
In your blog, you mentioned that it was his cousin who found Christ that ultimately led Lamorris to Christ. I wonder sometimes if the cousin doesn't look back and say, I had no idea.
Oh, yeah, I would think so, because who would have any idea that Lamorris would be where he is today? I mean, he went to Olivet Nazarene College, and then met his wife there. They got married, and then he's went on to get his master's degree, And, he went from a life of selling drugs and taking drugs to skipping school to being, a very, very well accomplished student. And now, he got on with Athletes in Action, who I write for as well. And then, he was referred to the Bengals because Marvin Lewis came in. They were looking for a new chaplain. So, I mean, I don't think he's in any jeopardy of losing his job as chaplain because that's always up to the head coach. But the players love him. I've been around them. I think they'll say, "Hey, we want Lamorris back in Cincinnati."
Well, if you get a chance to let him know, Lamorris has always been a role model. He's been a bad one. Now he's a good one.
Yeah.
Now the future for Dale. This week you've got a big event. You've got you're going to get to actually see for the first time the book that you published, and then you have some plans beyond that.
Yeah, I'm going up to this weekend. My wife and I are going up to the Pocono Mountains, where I've never been. It's about a 6-7 hour drive from my house. It's a nice resort up northern Pennsylvania. It's called the Christian Book Expo. The publisher, New Hope Publishing, is sending me up there to debut my book, which will be out next month. But there will be a lot of retailers, a lot of book buyers there. So we'll be there signing the book and hoping that they'll pick it up and carry it in their stores. So we're looking forward to that event. And then because the book officially launches February 25th, I got devotions. And then August 5th is the First Down devotions, the one that we've also been working really hard on. And we just got our first edits last week on that book, so we're excited about that. We have a lot of big name NFL players in it. Going to be interviewing Drew Brees soon of the Saints. I'm gonna give him a couple of weeks to.
Yeah, he's off now.
Get over. Unfortunately, and I'm gonna give him a couple of weeks to get over that couple of missed calls. So.
Well, Friday night we'll be hearing from a devoted Saints fan, American refugee Roger will be with us Friday night, and I've already talked to him, and I said, okay, we're not really here to talk about the NFL too much,
no,
but you gotta let those people get it out. So we'll hear more about that. Dale, I can't wait to find out what's in store next week and the weeks ahead. Dale, you're a great guy. I really appreciate you taking the time to just share with us at a more intimate level the things that are just not in the words of the blog and the story behind the story. Dale, you make it interesting, and your ministry is a blessing to all of us, and I just thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me again.
All right. Well, folks, that Dale Didway, he will be here on Tuesday nights unless there is a providential hindrance. And I hope that you'll make it a habit to join us each and every Tuesday night to hear the story of Christian athletes and athletes that are good role models. Words of encouragement, very much needed in the world we see today. We'll see you next week.